Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy.
What are we talking about this week, Christy?
We are talking about not tricking your dog.
Not tricking your dog. Oh, you're taking this one away big time because I am going to learn from you.
No. Well, I never see you trick your dogs.
That is a damn lie.
I really don't.
Stop.
So, what I mean by not tricking your dog is so often I think we as owners will try to call our dog over to catch them or to, because a lot of times we need to, or call them in from the yard to get them inside, but trick them into coming in, pretend to have treats or shake the treat bottle or whatever. And what I've found, especially in photography and just working with shelter dogs and just watching other people try to handle their own dogs, is dogs catch on to that really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can build trust, and I'm not saying that the dog never has to come inside or they don't get a consolation prize for coming in, but I am saying if you can build that trust of not giving an option like, hey, you do need to come in now, or I do need you to come to my side now, rather than I'm going to trick you into it and then like grab you aggressively and like throw you in my car. There's a difference between the two.
Why you gotta be so violent?
I know. Like a pup napping.
I
No,
know.
but we've all seen that person
I think we've all done it.
who is calling their dog. They finally trick them into coming near enough that they can grab them, and then
Yeah.
they're really frustrated. So they kind of aggressively grab at their dog, and then they're like huffing and puffing and getting them to and then they blow the house down. No, then they get them to the car. you know, and it's not a pleasant experience for the owner or the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a better way.
And I think when you say that you want to build trust with your dog, what you're actually saying is building a reinforcement history,
Yes.
putting money
Yeah.
in the bank,
Yeah, that is
putting
actually what I mean.
the reinforcement money in the bank. And
Yes.
it is not difficult to do if you select the things that are going to be most important to you,
Mhm.
and then you build the reinforcement history around them. So, what does that look like? Let's talk about what inspired this topic. And Christy's going to be real vulnerable and might never get a foster dog again.
Yeah, that's a true story.
But here's the inspiration.
So hopefully Jackson's Rescue is not listening. But as you all know, I have a foster that I've had since the beginning or the end of February. And about a week into having him, I went to take out recycling out the front door. And as I went to grab my front screen door to close it behind me, my fist hit it and it popped it wide open. At which point Jackson made eye contact with me and took off.
Is
And
that not
I'm
a real life scenario if you
like,
ever heard one?
oh man, like my guts just dropped. Like,
Yep.
oh,
As our good friend Kara would say, your heart fell out of your butt.
my heart fell out of my butt. Yeah, for sure.
And we all know that moment when you
Yes.
realize that your dog has gotten out and
And
it
you're
takes
screwed.
off. You are
Yeah.
screwed.
And so he just takes off running down the street.
Oh
And
God.
I start to run after him. And I realize very quickly that that is going to be very futile. I am I am not in running shape. And also he is very fast.
This is only funny because it turned out well.
Go back to when I had Jenny. I would outrun her if she got loose.
Well, she was also dying, so there's that.
Well, she was fake dying. So I immediately realized that's a terrible idea to run after him. So I run back into my house and I grab the highest value treat I can find. That luckily I had them on the table, so I knew exactly where to go. So I grab the treat and I grab my keys for the Forerunner and I just take off down the street. I run back to the Forerunner, I take off down the street, and he is a very sniffy dog.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness.
Thank God.
So he has stopped now at several places to sniff where the neighborhood dogs like to
Mm-hmm.
pee. And so he is in this overgrown grass patch, is sniffing away. And so I pull up. He's little, he's 30 pounds. So I can't even see him now.
Yeah.
So I pull up next to him and I pop open the door on on the passenger side and I just go, Jackson! And I really excitedly shake the treats and come on, let's go for a ride, buddy. And I see his little head pop up over the floor and he's looking at me. I go, yeah, come on, let's get in here. And so he does. He jumps in and he gets such a jackpot of a reward.
Yeah.
Also, I now can't reach my passenger door to shut it again because it's so far away,
Oh,
right? Because I'm
shoot.
still in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
So I do a full treat scatter in the back of the Forerunner,
Good choice, man.
while I run to the other side and close the passenger door.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two aspects of this. The first is we had been working very hard on recall with treats.
Recall. Mm-hmm.
Clearly that didn't work out because
Well,
I did
yes,
call him.
yes and no.
Right. Yes and no. But he also knew when I pulled treats out, it was never associated with something bad.
Yeah.
It was always, and a ride is also associated with a good thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so since I had promised him a ride, I took him around the block,
Hell yeah. That was an
you
amazing
know?
choice by you.
Yeah, so we didn't just go the 4 houses back to we went
Right.
around the block. He got his treat scatter because I wanted him to make sure that when I say like, "Hey, here's a better option," that he trusts that.
Yeah.
Like,
Because I
I'm
feel
not
like
luring him into
right.
a
And I feel
punishment.
like the tricking part of it is we need them to do something so that we can go on and do what we need to do, which means to the dog, we need you to do something and the fun ends. And
Right.
so you made the such a smart choice to be like, okay, his little romp around the avenue is ending, but I need to reinforce the fact that he got into the car with the promise of a ride and actually give the ride. And it cost you nothing
Yeah.
to live up to that promise.
Yeah, 90 extra seconds of my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. But it's going to be a big deal
Right. Yeah.
in the long term, which we hope it never happens again. But
Right, right.
it is reinforcement in the bank if you
Yeah.
ever need him to get into the car again to leave
Yeah.
something that is interesting and wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is I was telling somebody else this story and I said, yeah, so I have the treats. I'm shaking them. I'm saying, Jackson, come in. Like, let's get treats. And they go, oh, and then did you get in? And you were just like, are you kidding me? And I was like,
Oh,
no, not at all. But I think because I was in a frustrated and panicked
no. Yeah.
state,
Yeah.
it could have easily gone to that, and I do see
Yes.
why they thought I would just automatically
Mm-hmm.
go into, like, the
Mm-hmm.
punishment mode. When I say not tricking the dog, I mean, don't lure them in with something they love to punish them.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a mindset shift.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he does get consolation prizes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't get to just keep walking. The
Right.
fun is going to end.
Right.
And so a lot of times, like if he jumps in the car on his own, great. You get a consolation prize of
Yep.
a couple treats. Thanks for getting him when I asked you to. Or I actually make it a habit of not asking anymore. Like, hey,
Mm.
can you get in or will you get in? I'm just like, okay, we're done. Let's get in.
Mm-hmm.
Get in. And so then I don't know why that makes a difference, but it does. I feel
Well,
like there's definitely.
I think your tone and your intention is different. It
Mhm.
it makes me think about Sarah Stremming and how she says, "Don't give a choice if there's not a choice."
Right.
And
Exactly.
so your intention is, "Hey, I have done this thing with you and now it is over."
Mhm.
Sometimes that happens, right? But
Yeah.
don't be like, do you want to get in the car? When that is not an option. You
No, they
need
don't
to
want
get
to
in
get
the
in. They want
car.
to keep
Right. They
walking.
always want to keep doing the other thing. So it's just like, hey, we did the thing. It's over. We're getting in the car.
Yeah.
And I think it is about your intention and
Mhm.
and your mindset where you're just like, okay, we're done. It's very matter of fact.
Mhm.
Instead
Yeah.
of this, oh, do you want to? Do you not want to? Sorry, don't care if you want to. You don't
Mhm.
get to anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. And it is very much like, hey, we're going to get in the car. And, I know it's not fun that your fun is ending or your walk is ending or your playtime. But, here's a couple of your favorite treats and no big deal.
You know what I say to Trin?
Hmm. What?
Sometimes life is hard.
Sometimes.
Sometimes life is hard, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes
It
it
is.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can't have a party all the time, but I
Right.
think it is about that intention of
Mhm.
if there is a choice, give a choice. If
Yeah.
there is not a choice, don't give a choice.
Yeah.
And if there are things with your dog that are really important, then like we said, setting up that reinforcement history, which essentially means training it,
Mhm.
is so, so important. And thankfully for you, recall is something that's really important to you. So you had started building the reinforcement history with this new dog immediately.
Yeah.
And thank God, because that situation could have been really terrible on so many levels.
Yeah.
And instead, because he believed in you saying, yeah, like this isn't a great option, but we got other stuff for you,
Yeah.
he was like, okay, cool. There's reinforcement history in the bank. I
Mhm.
know that if I come to her, she's going to
Good
give me
things
something.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's a big deal.
Yeah, and when maybe 2 years ago, I did photography, Christmas photos for people, and one girl had a husky that was being a husky, and
If you
and
know,
not
you know.
and she didn't want to pose where we had the photos booth set up. She didn't want to participate anymore. And the owner was trying to catch her. And she was running away from the owner. The owner's trying to grab the leash. she's she's continually dodging the owner. It's now a big
Now
kerfuffle.
it's a game.
Yeah, and so she comes over to me and does the, like, stance, like, "I'm gonna run away as soon as you give this treat, but I'm gonna try to take the treat." And so I gave her the treat, and I never went for her. And she was like, "Hmm, that's an interesting game." And so
Mm-hmm.
then she came back and she took the treat and she just stood there. And then she took another treat and she stood there for longer. And the owner's like, "Would you just grab her?" And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Absolutely not." Because
Yep.
that's why she's coming to me,
Like
because
Christy's
I'm
literally like,
not
that's not what we're doing right now.
yeah, I'm not going to trick her into coming to me. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Now, if you wanna join in and be like, hey, why don't we
Mm-hmm.
maneuver you over here with
Mm-hmm.
treats now? We can do that." And that's what we did. We just kinda lured her into the spot we wanted her,
Mm-hmm.
not luring in a bad way, but like, "Hey, you're gonna actually we wanna reward you over here
Right,
instead."
right. So I think that there's an element of because it's like the fun is over thing. There is an element of the situation with Jackson was like an on the fly, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so the recall was what saved your ass. But I think that there's other elements, and I'm finding this having a smaller dog now. Something that was a problem early on with Trin was when she was a puppy, every time she came over to us, then we wanted to pick her up.
Oh.
And we were picking her up because she was being naughty. We were picking her up to take her out potty. We were picking
Mm.
up constantly picking this dog up, right?
Mhm.
And it became a thing then where she would come over and she would dodge because she was like, I don't want to be picked up. I want to move my
Oh.
body. I want to be free. I want to do this, right?
Yeah.
And so, it seems like it would be common sense, but why is it that people who like know what to tell other people, right? We never see
Right.
it for ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is my first experience owning a smaller
Mhm.
dog. So I was saying to one of the trainer, I was like, hey, you have smaller dogs. I'm seeing this because I was trying to teach her then to weave between my legs and she didn't want to come close to me.
Oh, interesting.
And so I had this theory, shit, she thinks I'm going to pick her up because I'm like
Oh,
luring her in now, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And so I was talking to the trainer about it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, all my small dogs." She said if they're small enough at full grown that I will be carrying them in any way at any time, we do elevator up from day one. So,
Oh,
uh-huh. So
that's so
every
smart.
time, I know. So every time the dog comes over, I might touch you and say elevator up, and that's it. I might put my full hand on your back, say elevator up. I might actually pick you up. I might do like just a variation of everything. And
Mm-hmm.
attaching the cue, it could be anything. I think elevator
Right.
up is very cute.
It's very cute. Yeah.
And so the dog learns that
Mhm.
when you come over, if I say that thing over time, I've built this
Yeah.
reinforcement history, and it's a clear communication to the dog once it's trained that if you come over and I say elevator up, I'm going to pick you up.
Hmm.
There's a contingency that is built there.
Hmm.
That means you stay where you are. I'm going to reach down and pick you up. You've built a reinforcement history for it. There is no trick in it, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I saw that it really did become this thing with Trin that she was
Yeah.
like, the fun ends when you do that. I
Yeah.
don't want that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you unintentionally trick your dog,
Hmm. Yeah.
and you have to kind of back up and maybe get some outside perspective and be like, what's happening here? Because to
Yeah.
me, I think I kind of took for granted all little dogs want to be picked up.
Mm.
Like
Mm-mm.
why wouldn't they want
Mm-mm.
that? Like,
No.
and Trin is a dog that really loves to lay on your lap and snuggle with,
Sure.
so to me, I was just like, well, why wouldn't you want me to pick you up?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you like that? And then once I started discussing it, it was like,
Mm.
oh, dumbass, that is so clear. And now
And
it's not
like
a problem anymore.
that's awesome. And I
Mhm.
think with Trin too, she does like this little uppy, almost like she's asking for ups.
Oh, her
Like,
little hi, hi, hi. Actually,
yeah,
she just wants to say hi.
right. And
She doesn't want to.
I absolutely mistook that for
Yeah,
she wants me to pick her up.
yeah.
And there was, I think I did pick her up and she's like, this isn't like her enthusiasm drained from her body. Like,
She was like, this is not part of this deal.
yeah,
Ma'am,
I told
I
you what I
was just
wanted
saying
and
hi.
and you mistook it.
It's so, so true because she does come up and because clearly I am not going to train my little dog not to jump up on people because I just don't care. Because if it's important, it's important. And
Right.
that is not important to me. So she does do this thing where she kind of like puts her front feet, jumps up on you, and Jer and I narrate it because we narrate everything our dogs do.
Perfect.
So to us, she
Yeah.
now is responding because we literally say, hi, 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 hi. And so it's become almost like a cue now.
Yeah,
And
and in my head,
hilarious.
the narration was upsies, 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 up.
Yeah,
And that was
absolutely
and
not
she
what
was
she was
like,
looking for.
"That is not what I said."
Yeah, yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I think that how you take the tricking thing. Well, first of all, this is not like, oh, you're tricking your dog. I
Yeah.
think it's more to think of the perspective of what is really important to you. And in my mind, that also ties into like, what are safety issues?
Yeah, and I do think even beyond that, there are sometimes we lure our dog into unpleasant situations for them
Yes.
with the promise of a treat.
Nails.
You get this treat, but also the worst thing in the world's gonna happen to you. Like, ugh.
Grooming is a huge one. Grooming is such a
Yeah,
massive one for the luring
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I'm working with Jackson on what is that? Going to
Cooperative care.
cooperative care.
Yes. But it
Yeah,
is
for his
tough
nails,
because,
and it is not going well.
well, here's the thing too with the grooming thing, and I'm saying grooming like as an
Yeah.
overarching, whether that's brushing or combing or nails or brushing the teeth, putting in eardrops, whatever the thing is. I think grooming is really, really tough because it is a part of life.
Hmm.
And
It has
if
to happen.
well, it should. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it has to. And it's something that we as humans think of, I think a lot of times as like a nuisance. Like most
Mhm. Yeah.
people, okay, outside of me, aren't like, yay, let me do my dog's nails or
Right.
let me brush my dog.
That's not the norm.
That's
No.
not a normal emotional response. So we've already previously established that I have issues. So it's a task that you already have feelings about.
Right.
And
Right.
then it's a requirement. And
Hmm.
we as humans don't really like requirements.
Never.
And then if you have a dog that has issues with it and feelings about it,
Hmm.
now we just got a whole black hole of ugliness. And
Yeah.
I think that that's really hard. So
Hmm.
then you're trying to lure your dog in with all the things, and you're already all in a bad space.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
really, really difficult to
Mhm.
kind of change the. So what are you doing with Jackson? How tell us what it looks like, because how are you not sort of tricking him into a nail trim?
Yeah. So we're his nails are daggers right now, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
living with that. And we're walking more on the sidewalks on our walk
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
help
So you're managing
slow
it.
that slow that growth a little bit. But right now where we're at is he didn't even want to look at the clippers at first. He
Mm-hmm.
was very no. And so right now we are at the stage where I can put the clippers on his paw
Mm-hmm.
and I treat him and he is still pulling away, but
Mm-hmm.
it's getting longer and he's more like, this doesn't seem like it's the worst thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, like, I've gotten to a point where I can put the clipper around his nail, but
Mm-hmm.
not apply any type of pressure to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we're honestly, we're just on on the left side so far for him.
Yeah.
The right side is not
Yeah.
has not come along with that. So
So are you putting it on a cue? Are you setting it up in a certain spot? How does he know? How are you getting him into position that you're not luring him with treats or like tricking him into it? Are you just kind of asking him to come over and then
yeah,
rewarding him for
yeah.
staying? Yeah.
I'm just asking him to come over, rewarding him for staying, and then giving him the choice if he wants to leave,
Yep.
then he can. And then he's very confused at the fact that the treats are done when we're done. If he leaves the session, then we just pack up and we're
Yeah.
done. So
Yeah.
and he's so smart. Like he really thinks through
Yeah.
things. So he's starting to put the pieces together. So I'm letting him put those
Mm.
pieces together of, hey, this is what happens. I ask you to the certain spot. I ask you to lay down. You
Mm-hmm.
do. The clippers come out.
Mm-hmm.
There's an exchange of treats. And then if he doesn't leave on his own, like because I don't know that he always knows he can leave. I'll be
Yes.
honest. And so if we've done it a couple repetitions and he seems stressed
Mm-hmm.
or angsty, then I just wrap it up. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay, that's enough for today.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going much slower than I would like.
Mm-hmm.
And we're considering going to the scratch board instead, but it's coming along.
Yeah. So you're building reinforcement history
Mhm.
in him basically not moving while the clippers are out, and you're doing
Mhm.
the whole thing. And then you're adding duration to the different pieces of the picture based on
Yeah.
what he can handle.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like you're doing exactly what you should be doing. But it doesn't go as fast as we want always.
No,
And that's
it doesn't.
tough.
And it's tough on the front end because it's gonna go faster once it all comes together.
Right.
So even if it takes 6 months on the front end,
Right.
like that would be a long time. But even if
Right.
it takes 6 months on the front end, then he is set for the next 12 years on the back end.
Provided
Like,
nothing changes.
right, right. But,
Yeah.
he's set up for success
Yes.
and
He's got a
easier
good
nail.
foundation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you. And I think this is one of those situations because certain aspects of grooming have to happen, right? I think this is a situation where it's like either you are building the reinforcement history and you're building this whole thing like Christy is doing, or it is just happening.
Mhm.
And that can look different.
Mhm.
And what I would say to anyone out there is if it just has to happen, please make it happen in a completely different way than what you
Mhm.
are building.
Yeah, and maybe with a
So
different person
that's what I was
than you.
about to say. So, what does that mean? That means taking them to a groomer, taking them to a vet office, having a
Mhm.
mobile groomer come and do, I'm going to use nails because it's what we're using as an example
Mhm.
now. Have a trusted friend do it in a completely different room, put them
Mhm.
on a grooming table or another table, like literally
Mhm.
make the picture look 100% different
Mhm.
when it has to happen.
Yeah.
That way, at least you are clear in this is not a yes or no,
Mhm.
but over here, we're building a relationship around this,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
This was actually the advice that I gave to Kelly for Tova. This is a friend of ours. Whew, they have been round and round with her nails, and
Mhm.
it was a real struggle. And this is, I mean, they started from the beginning, and it was just a quirk about her that she
Mhm.
had a rough freaking time. And I mean, they got to the point where they were having to employ drugs, and it was a whole thing.
Mm.
And Kelly kept working the cooperative care angle in a different picture.
Mm.
And I gotta tell you, they are now cutting nails and trimming,
Oh,
and it is happening on an ottoman, and it is not a big deal. And when she sent me the first video, I'm not shitting you, I almost cried.
that's so amazing. And they are such amazing owners too, because I was thinking, as I was thinking about this episode, I also was thinking about their dog, their other dog,
Warren.
Warren, who just has such a special place in my heart. But he also has trust issues when you start using food as a lure.
Oh,
He
yes.
he very much feels like you're about to trick him into something. So he's
Mm.
constantly on guard of what am I getting roped into
Mm-hmm.
and why won't I like it?
Yes, that is such a good example.
Yeah.
He's cautious by nature all
Yes.
around.
Yes.
And he has his people that he trusts and he
Mhm.
knows and he loves. And he's a very kind-hearted, soft little guy, and he's
Yeah.
so sweet. And you are right. He is constantly waiting for you to manipulate him.
Mhm.
And he's aware of it. He's cautious of it. And so I agree with you. He's a great example of a dog that you need to be very careful because he's like, oh, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah. And
And if you break it, you're in
oh,
trouble.
yeah, you're not gonna get that trust back.
Not easily.
Yeah. Yeah, and which is what is funny is he and Lucy got along so well, and she really brought out the confident side of him,
Mm.
and so I never saw this really timid side
And
until
then
we.
I saw a completely different
Yeah,
Warren.
you never saw the brave,
Nope.
rambunctious, fun Warren, and our our opinions of him were very different. Like, I was like,
Yes.
"No, Warren could come live here. He'd be so easy." And you're like, "Really?" Because he's just so cautious about things,
Mhm.
and then we went to a scent class together, Lucy and Warren, and I saw it in there, like, his body tucked, he's trying to
Mhm.
figure out who's manipulating him and
Mhm.
why, and when's the punishment coming, and
Mhm.
his family, let me tell you, his family is
Mhm.
not punishment based at all. That was clearly before they got him, and it may
Or
just be part of his
Mhm.
personality,
Yes.
um, and it may not have been intentional from his previous
Yeah.
owners either. It may be something where they're like, "Okay, we're gonna give a treat because we need to catch
Yeah.
you," but now he's associated
Yeah.
being lured into a situation with something negative. when it could be, when I say lure, I don't mean it in a negative way. I'll lure Jackson into the backyard for training.
I use luring
Yeah,
in training tasks.
absolutely.
Absolutely. It's a positive, it can
Yeah.
be a very positive tool.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do question too with Warren being that he is a little bit of a softer guy. I think
Yeah.
that there is definitely a genetic component there. And that
Mhm.
doesn't say anything bad about him. It's just
No.
something to understand about him.
Mhm.
And thankfully, it is something Kelly and Bart totally understand. And they do such a great job about setting him up for success. But I agree with you. Man, that is a dog that is going to hold a freaking grudge if you
Yeah.
trick him into something.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to try to avoid those things
Yeah.
where the dog feels tricked or
Yeah.
manipulated, because some dogs you don't get a second chance
Yeah.
with, or a fifth chance or 20th chance.
Right.
I feel like Jackson is he's very resilient. He's a
Yes,
very
he
resilient dog.
is.
But I also think he remembers things
Mm-hmm.
too. So he is resilient, but if you continue to break his trust, then he has you pegged. Like he's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, when you do that, that means this. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I feel like with Julius, my last foster, he was so soft like
Mm-hmm.
Warren that breaking his trust was just
It was like
heartbreaking.
it was a personal attack.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
ugh, like it made my heart hurt for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I can push a lot of things with Tiago that I would never push with Tater, right?
Right.
it,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's just being cognizant of what the dog needs to be successful. And I think we've talked about it before that there are things with Tiago that I take for granted
Mm,
because he can handle it. You know what I mean? And I'm
sure.
not like within reason.
Right.
Like if I call Tiago in 5 times and do not pay him, on the sixth time, he's still coming.
Yeah.
If I call Tater or Trin in 5 times, well, first of all, they won't even come 5 times without payment. So we don't even have to say the sixth time because they're not coming. They
Which
might
is,
come once or twice, but that's about it. And it's a complete difference in dogs. And it's
yeah.
something that we need to be aware of. You know, I feel like recall is such a huge thing
Yeah.
because it's so important in so many ways, but it is true.
Yeah.
And I'm working really hard to build a reinforcement history in Trin, and it's
Mhm.
actually helping me build Tater's recall.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm invested. Okay, this is gonna sound really mean. Here we go.
Oh my gosh, please don't say it out loud.
Christine's rolling her eyes because I'm invested in Trin's recall and I'm not invested in Tater's recall.
You said it out loud.
Okay, but let me explain
Please do.
because I do not have any intention of leaving Tater off leash ever. Because
Mhm.
if Tater hears something scary, I have fear that he will be gone, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so it's a safety thing. I have hopes, although they're dwindling, hopes that someday Trin will be able to be off leash like Tiago is.
Mhm.
And so I am invested in building that relationship and that reinforcement history, right?
Mhm.
And a
Mhm.
fringe benefit of that is that Tater's actually like coming when I call.
Yeah,
So there is actually a reason. It's not just because I don't give a flying shit about Tater.
good.
But it's something that I'm actively thinking
Mhm.
about how I'm doing this and why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm getting a fringe benefit out of it because Tater's actually like, oh, wow, maybe she means something. I don't know. Let me
Mm.
go find out.
Can we do confessions of a dog mom right now?
Yeah.
Lucy never once got paid for being called inside from outside. Like it was not a thing I
Her
knew
whole
to do.
life.
I don't think her whole life.
What?
And I did not even know that some dogs don't come in from the backyard when you call them. I didn't think that was a thing.
Oh,
I
she
just
she was
thought,
a Tiago.
like, yeah, well, yeah. She was like, well, because there was also like, she would be out there barking and I would be mad. So she's like, oh, mom's mad. Gotta get inside.
You never paid her.
I don't think I ever paid her.
Wow, you're a real wretched human.
I know. I know. She got paid for a lot of other things, though.
But you did take advantage of the same way that I do with Tiago. Like I know if
Yeah.
I call him, he's coming.
Yeah. I didn't
You
even
know what?
think twice about it.
You know what's kind of sweet about that though?
Huh.
Like if we really want to break that down,
Uh-huh.
that means that them coming to us is more important to them than whatever else they're doing.
I think for Tiago, that is very true. I think for
Why do you
Lucy,
think Lucy did?
she felt that if I had to come out and get her, all hell was going to break loose for her. She was going to get punished, not treated. And
Oh,
like, I think
so
there was an element of that.
it was
Yeah.
like the lack of punishment brought her in the house. Oh, you are awful.
I know. Maybe we can cut this.
No, I think it's real life. It's staying in.
No, and I do think, because there was, I mean, I was punishment based when we
Well,
started
that's
it.
true.
And so I just never even
That
thought
is really true.
about updating or changing that, but it was so ingrained in her that she came
Yeah.
in, and at the time, I lived with my brother, so he was not going to treat her for coming in. He was
Yeah.
going to say, "Get inside right now," and she was gonna
Yeah.
say, "Okay." She might do one more
That
bark and then come
that
in.
is so, so interesting to think about and the change in methods.
Mhm.
I mean, I'll be honest, when Tiago comes in, even though I don't need to, I often do give him a treat. Like I would
That's very
say,
nice. You're so
I
much better than me.
no, I would say that of at this current time with all three dogs, if I call them in from outside, I am paying 100% of the time.
Nice.
But that is because I am building that in Trin because she is the opposite of Tiago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a matter of circumstance right now.
And I do think I had less recalls in because Lucy had a doggy door. So
Oh,
literally
that's true too.
the only times I was calling her inside was like, you have to stop barking.
Oh,
Like,
that's a
come
good
inside.
point. Because to her, being outside was more of a norm than a resource to my dogs.
Yeah.
Because my
Yeah.
dogs have to be let out.
Yeah.
Oh, it's also interesting to me.
Yeah. It is,
So
isn't
I
it?
probably do have to build more because my dogs don't have free access.
Yeah.
Huh,
Sometimes I'm sure that there were times along the way that I was like, hey, do you want to come in for this?
I'm
A
sure
treat
you
or
did.
dinner or whatever.
I think you were not the devil you think you were.
Yeah. But no, it would be unusual
Mm,
for me to treat it.
mm. That was kind of
Like,
a rabbit hole, but it is
yeah.
an interesting rabbit hole.
Yeah. Kind
Yeah.
of along the lines.
Yeah. Okay, so
So,
what are the takeaways? I would say the takeaways are if there are things that are extremely important to you, even if it's just I really want my dog to do X, or if it's something related to safety,
mhm,
then you want to think about how you can build a solid reinforcement history. And reinforcement looks different for every dog.
absolutely.
So, a solid reinforcement history for that dog for whatever the behavior is, so that when the time comes that
Mhm.
you need them to do the behavior and you have no payment to offer, you still have that great relationship with your dog and you're not breaking anything.
Right. And be cognizant of if you're asking your dog to do something, if that thing is punishing to them and how you're approaching that.
Yeah. And if it is punishing, like the fun is ending, and we don't mean punishing like you're hitting them or slapping them or whatever.
Right.
That's not what we mean, but punishing
Right.
because the fun is ending, or the thing you're asking them to do is grooming or something like that,
Unpleasant for them, not their
unpleasant.
favorite.
Yeah. Then don't give an option
Mhm.
Just sort of make it more of in a matter of fact way. This is part of what we do.
Mhm.
And then in a different picture, train for that thing as well in a broken down setup, like Christy was talking about with the nails.
Yeah, and I would say just like in the case of Warren, just be cognizant of the
Mm,
dog that you have and what what you're doing to encourage behavior that you want, but
mm.
also avoid using something they love to lure them into something they see as punishing.
Oh, yeah. Which could be food, which could be cuddles, which could be couch time. Let me
Any of
lure
it.
you into the couch time so that I can brush you. Let me lure you into the couch time so I can do your nails,
Mhm.
whatever that might look like. Oh, I
Yeah.
really know that you really love to sit on this little stool right here, which makes it easier for me to pick up, which I know you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really thinking about how you're using. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes along with too the thought of focusing and reinforcing the things you do like so that they become more present. And
Yeah.
then it just becomes a part of everybody's day.
Yeah.
And then you can focus on the positive versus the negative.
Yeah. And then when you do it right, I think there's more confidence there.
Yes. Well, because why? You're building your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
trust relationship, that
Mm,
reinforcement relationship, all of it.
all of it. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect. If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.